The diplomatic vessel, Harmony's Edge, drifted silently through the void, its hull gleaming under the distant light of Kepler 442. Captain Kim Ji-won stood on the bridge, reviewing the first contact protocols one final time. After 3 years of careful preparation, humanity was about to make formal contact with the Vorthak Empire, a civilization that controlled 17 star systems. Captain, we're receiving their response. Communications Officer Park Min-ho announced, his voice steady, despite the historic nature of the moment. The translation matrix had been working overtime to decode the alien language patterns they'd intercepted over the past months. Ji-won nodded to her diplomatic team. Ambassador Lee So-man, humanity's most experienced xenorelations specialist, stepped forward. The message that came through the speakers was not what anyone expected. Inferior species, the translated voice rumbled with mechanical coldness. You will submit to Vorthak rule. Your technology will serve the Empire. Your worlds will pay tribute. Resistance will result in extinction. The bridge fell silent. Lee So-man cleared her throat and activated the transmission array. We appreciate your response, but humanity seeks mutual cooperation. We have much to offer in terms of trade, scientific exchange, and cultural. The transmission cut off abruptly. Long-range sensors screamed warnings as massive energy signatures appeared throughout the system. The Vorthak had brought a war fleet. 37 vessels, Captain, reported sensor technician Choi Dae-hyun, his face pale. They're charging weapons. All hands, this is the captain, Ji-won announced over the ship's communication system. Prepare for emergency jump. We are departing immediately. But it was too late. The first Vorthak salvo struck the Harmony's Edge before the jump drive could engage. The diplomatic vessel, designed for exploration rather than combat, broke apart in seconds. Captain Ji-won's last transmission managed to reach the emergency beacon. First contact failed. They're coming for our colonies. 3 days later, the Vorthak fleet arrived at Kepler 438b, humanity's newest agricultural world. Colony Administrator Yoon Ji-hyun had evacuated most of the 2 million settlers, but thousands remained, unable to leave their homes. The Vorthak bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the verdant world was a burning wasteland. The pattern repeated at Proxima Station and New Busan. The aliens didn't just destroy military targets. They obliterated everything. Families, schools, research facilities, art galleries. Children who had never seen Earth except in pictures died alongside grandparents who had helped build these new worlds. On Earth, President Song Mirai stood before the Global Assembly, her hands trembling as she read the casualty reports. 3 million dead. An entire generation of colonists erased in less than a week. The Vorthak have sent us a message, she said, her voice carrying across every human settlement in known space. They believe we are weak. They believe we will surrender. They have made the greatest mistake in their empire's history. The assembly erupted in shouts of anger and grief. Song Mirai raised her hand for silence. We offered them peace. We offered them friendship. They chose war. Now they will learn what humanity becomes when our children are murdered. In the depths of Luna Base, Admiral Kang Hyun-woo received new orders that had been locked away since humanity first reached the stars. Protocols that the Terran Colonial Federation had hoped never to implement. The Prometheus Files, humanity's darkest contingency plans. Sir, his aide, Lieutenant Nam Yuna, whispered as she handed him the sealed documents. Are we really going to? Hyun-woo looked at the images from the destroyed colonies. Bodies of children floating in the void. Entire cities reduced to radioactive craters. Lieutenant, for 3 centuries we've been the peaceful species. We've been the ones who extended our hand in friendship to the universe. The Vorthak have shown us what the universe thinks of our friendship. He broke the seal on the Prometheus files. Inside were blueprints for weapons that had been theoretical when humanity reached the stars. Technologies that had been shelved because they were too dangerous, too terrible to contemplate using against any living species. Send word to the outer system research stations, Hyun-woo ordered. Project Sunspear is authorized, full military protocol. and send a message to all human colonies. Evacuation of non-combatants begins immediately. We're going to show the Vorthak why Earth's children carry the fire of our sun in their hearts. As news of the authorization spread through human space, a change began. The peaceful explorers and terraformers who had built humanity's interstellar civilization started to remember older instincts. The same species that had survived ice ages, world wars, and the near extinction of their homeworld began to prepare for something the galaxy had never seen. The Vorthak had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping among the stars. They were about to learn that some species are most dangerous when they have something to protect. The Vorthak High Command convened in their fortress world of Mordak, expecting to receive humanity's surrender. Instead, they received silence. Where they expected pleas for mercy, their long-range sensors detected something far more ominous: massive industrial activity throughout human space. War Master Velthok studied the intelligence reports with growing confusion. These humans, they are not behaving as conquered species should. Their shipping lanes have increased activity by 300%. They have ceased all civilian communications with our territory. His intelligence officer, Sub-Commander Granix, highlighted several disturbing data points. War Master, we are detecting energy signatures from their outer system that do not match any known technology. Whatever they are building, it is substantial. Velthok dismissed the concern with a wave of his armored hand. Let them build. We have conquered 47 species. These mammals will learn submission, or they will join their colonies in extinction. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, the largest construction project in human history was taking shape. Engineering Chief Yoon Subin coordinated the efforts of 50,000 workers as they assembled something that had previously existed only in theoretical physics journals. The containment field is stable, reported her assistant Dr. Kim Tae-hyung as he monitored the exotic matter collectors. We're actually building it, a Dyson harness capable of channeling stellar energy into directed weapons. Subin nodded grimly. The Vorthak wanted to see our technology. They're going to get their wish. On Earth, the transformation was complete. President Song Mirai had declared martial law, not to suppress the population, but to coordinate the largest military mobilization in human history. Every factory, every shipyard, every research facility had been converted to military production. General Park Jin-woo, the new Supreme Military Commander, briefed the Global Assembly on humanity's preparations. We have recalled every exploration vessel, every cargo hauler, every civilian ship. They are being retrofitted with weapons. Our agricultural worlds are producing nothing but military supplies. Our research stations are working on projects that... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Projects that will ensure the galaxy remembers this war. The first sign of humanity's true response came at the border system of Wolf 359. A Vorthak patrol fleet of 12 vessels encountered what appeared to be a single human ship. When they moved to intercept, the vessel didn't flee. Instead, it transmitted a message that was broadcast across all Vorthak frequencies. This is Commander Lee Jisoo of the Terran Defense Force. You have murdered our children. You have destroyed our homes. You have one opportunity to withdraw from human space. This is your only warning. The Vorthak commander, Sector Leader Kexville, laughed at the audacity. 1 ship against 12. He ordered the attack. What happened next changed the Vorthak's understanding of warfare. The human vessel didn't fight conventionally. Instead, it activated a device that turned the system's asteroid field into kinetic weapons, using gravitational manipulation to hurl massive rocks at near-light speed. The Vorthak fleet was obliterated in minutes, but it was Commander Lee's final transmission that truly shook the enemy. We are no longer the species you attacked. We have become something else. Tell your leaders we are coming. Throughout human space, similar preparations continued. Admiral Kang Hyun-woo oversaw the completion of Project Sunspear from his new command ship, the Retribution. The vessel was unlike anything humanity had ever built, less a ship than a mobile weapons platform designed for a single purpose. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, Captain Oh Seojin, The Prometheus array is online. We can target any star within 50 light-years with pinpoint accuracy. Hyunwoo stared at the tactical display showing Vorthak territory. Each red dot represented a star system where billions of lives hung in the balance. The weight of what they were prepared to do pressed down on him like the gravity of a collapsing star. "Sir?" Lieutenant Nam Yuna asked quietly. "Do you think they'll surrender when they see what we can do?" The Admiral thought of the children on New Busan, of the families on Kepler 438b, of the 3 million human lives extinguished without mercy. "Lieutenant, the Vorthak believe in strength. They worship power. They're about to learn that when you awaken a sleeping giant, you don't get to choose how it responds." Across the galaxy, other species watched the build-up with growing concern. The peaceful humans who had been eager to share their art, their music, their scientific discoveries, were becoming something darker. Ancient archives on a dozen worlds contained warnings about Earth, warnings that had been dismissed as mythology. The Zephyrians, an ancient race that had observed humanity from afar, sent a desperate message to the Vorthak High Command: "You have made an error that will echo across the galaxy. The humans are not what they seem. They are the children of a world that has known ice and fire, war and peace. They carry both creation and destruction in their hearts. Stop this war before it is too late." The message was dismissed as the paranoid ravings of a dying civilization. The Vorthak continued their preparations for what they assumed would be humanity's final defeat. They were about to learn that some mistakes cannot be undone. The second wave of Vorthak attacks came 6 months after the initial assault, targeting humanity's core systems. War Master Velthok had assembled the largest fleet in Vorthak history, over 200 vessels carrying enough firepower to glass entire worlds. Their first target was the Tau Ceti system, home to humanity's primary shipbuilding facilities. As the massive fleet emerged from hyperspace, they expected to find panicked humans fleeing in whatever ships they could find. Instead, they encountered Admiral Kang Hyunwoo's new battle group. "This is Admiral Kang of the Terran Defense Force," came the transmission. "You have entered human space with hostile intent. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Subcommander Granick sneered at his sensor display. "Admiral, they have 37 ships to our 200. They cannot be serious." But Velthok had studied the reports from Wolf 359. These humans had already proven they fought unlike any species the Vorthak had encountered. "All ships maximum alert. Deploy in defensive formation." The battle that followed became known as the Tau Ceti Massacre, though history would debate which side truly suffered the massacre. The human ships didn't engage conventionally. Instead, they revealed weapons that seemed to violate known physics. Captain Kim Min-woo commanded the destroyer Soul's Pride, the first vessel to engage. "Target their flagship. Activate the quantum disruptors." The Vorthak watched in horror as their capital ship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not exploded. It was there one moment and gone the next, leaving behind only empty space where matter had been converted to pure energy. "Impossible," Gronix whispered, staring at his sensors. "They've weaponized quantum mechanics." The battle continued for 3 hours. When it ended, the once mighty Vorthak fleet was scattered debris floating in the void. Only a handful of ships escaped to carry word back to their empire, but Admiral Kang wasn't finished. He opened a channel to the fleeing vessels. "Carry this message to your leaders. We offered you peace. You chose war. What you have seen today is nothing compared to what comes next. Withdraw from human space, or we will show you why your ancestors should have feared the darkness between stars." The survivors brought more than just news of defeat. They brought recordings of weapons that shouldn't exist, technologies that suggested humanity had been hiding their true capabilities for decades. The Vorthak High Command realized they were no longer fighting the peaceful species they had initially encountered. On Earth, President Song Mirai addressed the human population one final time before implementing the final phase of their response. "Citizens of Earth and her colonies, the enemy continues to believe they can intimidate us through superior numbers. They will learn that numbers mean nothing when facing a species that has turned the fundamental forces of the universe into weapons. The true scope of humanity's preparations became clear when the deep space monitoring stations detected movement in the outer system. Ships were emerging from the Kuiper Belt, vessels that had been under construction in absolute secrecy for over a year. Engineer Captain Yoon Subin stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, humanity's first starkiller. The massive vessel was less a ship than a mobile stellar engineering platform, designed for a single terrifying purpose. "All systems check complete," reported her weapons officer, Commander Lee Kyungmin. "The stellar disruption array is fully operational. We can destabilize any main sequence star within our targeting range." Subin stared at the tactical display showing the Vorthak systems. Each star represented millions, sometimes billions, of lives. The weight of what they were prepared to do was almost unbearable. "Signal the fleet. We move to our first target." The Vorthak military base at Xerion Prime was chosen for humanity's demonstration. The system contained a small red dwarf star and 3 planets, one of which housed a major Vorthak naval facility with over 1 million personnel. When the human fleet arrived, they didn't attack the base directly. Instead, the Prometheus positioned itself at the edge of the system and began its work. Using technology derived from humanity's centuries of stellar research, they began to destabilize the star's fusion processes. Base Commander Trelvok watched his sensors in growing panic as the system's star began to behave erratically. "What are they doing? Stars don't just change like this." His science officer, Dr. Nexara, stared at the readings in disbelief. "Commander, they're manipulating the star's magnetic field, disrupting the fusion chain reaction. If they continue, the star will expand catastrophically." The evacuation of Xerion Prime began immediately, but it was too late. Within 6 hours, the red dwarf had begun its death throes, expanding into a red giant that consumed the inner planets. The Vorthak base, along with its 1 million personnel, was vaporized in stellar fire. Admiral Kang's message to the Vorthak High Command was brief. "We told you we would show you consequences. This is what happens when you make humanity angry. Withdraw from our space, pay reparations for our murdered colonies, and never threaten us again, or we will continue our demonstration." Across the galaxy, every civilization with the ability to monitor stellar activity detected what had happened at Xerion Prime. The humans hadn't just won a battle, they had killed a star. Ancient species that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires suddenly remembered why they had always watched Earth with wary respect. The Vorthak Empire, which had conquered dozens of species through superior firepower, now faced an enemy that could extinguish the very suns that warmed their worlds. For the first time in their history, they knew fear. The Vorthak High Command met an emergency session as reports flooded in from across their empire. 3 more star systems had gone dark in the past week, their suns destabilized by human star-killer fleets. Panic was spreading through their territory as millions of beings fled systems that might be targeted next. War Master Velthok paced before the assembled commanders, his usually confident demeanor cracked. "How do we fight an enemy that can kill? Stars? Our fleets mean nothing against such power." Supreme War Leader Kralthox, eldest of the Vorthak military caste, spoke with grim determination. "We cannot appear weak before our subjects. If we surrender to these humans, every conquered species will revolt. We fight to the end." But even as he spoke, the reports continued. The human battle group led by Admiral Kang Hyunwoo had appeared. At the edge of the Morketh system, home to 12 billion Vorthak civilians and the Empire's largest industrial complex. "This is Admiral Kang of the Terran Defense Force," came the now familiar transmission. "You have ignored our warnings. You continue to occupy our space. You refuse to pay reparations for our murdered colonies. This ends now." From the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Kang watched the massive Vorthak homeworld through the main display. 12 billion lives. The weight of that number pressed down on him like the gravity of a black hole. Beside him, Lieutenant Nam Yuna monitored the communications array. "Sir, we're receiving desperate pleas for mercy from the civilian population. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." Kang closed his eyes for a moment, remembering the children of New Busan, the families of Kepler 438b. Lieutenant, connect me to the Vorthak High Command. When the connection was established, Kang's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. This is your final warning. Complete withdrawal from human space. Reparations for our dead. Freedom for all species enslaved. By your empire, you have 1 hour to comply. Supreme War Leader Kralthox responded with defiant fury. We do not negotiate with inferior species. Do your worst, mammals. Admiral Kang sighed deeply. Commander Yoon, begin stellar destabilization sequence. The Prometheus, positioned at the system's edge, began its terrible work. But this time, Captain Yoon Subin introduced a modification to their process. Instead of rapidly destabilizing the star, they began a slow, controlled expansion, giving the Vorthak time to evacuate while demonstrating humanity's complete control over stellar processes. Admiral, Captain Oh Seojun reported from the tactical station. The star's luminosity is increasing by 12% per hour. At this rate, the habitable zone will shift outward in approximately 18 hours. The evacuation of Morketh became the largest refugee crisis in galactic history. Thousands of ships fled the system as their sun slowly began to cook their world. But it was Captain Yoon's next action that truly broke the Vorthak resistance. Stellar stabilization sequence initiated, she announced. We're bringing the star back to normal parameters. Across the galaxy, species watched in awe as humanity demonstrated they could not only kill stars, they could control them. The slow expansion stopped, reversed, and within 6 hours the Morketh sun had returned to its normal state. The message was clear. Humanity didn't just have the power to destroy, they had the precision to spare those who surrendered. The psychological impact was devastating. Revolts broke out across the Vorthak Empire as enslaved species realized their oppressors could be defeated. The mighty war fleets that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries suddenly seemed irrelevant against an enemy that wielded stars as weapons. General Park Jinwoo, coordinating the campaign from Earth, received reports of surrender from 17 Vorthak sector commanders in a single day. They're abandoning their forward positions, he reported to President Song Mirai, pulling back to their core systems. But Admiral Kang wasn't satisfied with partial surrender. The humans had learned a lesson about half measures when they first offered peace. This time there would be complete victory or complete destruction. All human fleets advance to final positions, he ordered. Operation Daybreak is authorized. Across Vorthak space, human Starkiller fleets appeared at the edge of every major system simultaneously. The message was coordinated and broadcast on all frequencies. Unconditional surrender. Complete withdrawal from occupied territories, full reparations, you have 24 hours. Supreme War Leader Kralthox, watching his empire crumble around him, made one final, desperate gambit. He ordered the execution of human prisoners captured from the initial diplomatic mission, broadcasting their deaths as a show of Vorthak strength. Admiral Kang's response was swift and merciless. The star system containing the prison facility was the first to go completely dark. This time there was no slow expansion, no demonstration of control. The star simply went nova, consuming everything in the system in a matter of minutes. We told you to stop, Admiral Kang broadcast to the remaining Vorthak leadership. You chose to continue. This is what happens when you make humanity truly angry. Every star in your empire will go dark before we allow you to harm another human being. Within hours, the formal surrender came. The Vorthak Empire, which had dominated its region of the galaxy for over 1,000 years, capitulated completely to a species they had dismissed as primitive just months before. But the war's end was only the beginning of humanity's transformation into something the galaxy had never seen before. 6 months after the Vorthak surrender, Ambassador Lee Soman stood before the newly formed Galactic Confederation Council. The meeting was held aboard New Harmony Station, humanity's diplomatic hub built in the neutral space between former Vorthak territory and the liberated worlds. The age of conquest is over, she announced to the assembled representatives of 47 species. Humanity offers partnership to all who seek peace, and protection to those who cannot protect themselves. The transformation of galactic politics had been swift and absolute. Species that had cowered before Vorthak fleets now looked to humanity as their protector. Trade agreements were signed eagerly, scientific exchanges flourished, and for the first time in millennia, the galaxy knew true peace. But it was a peace maintained by the implicit threat of humanity's stellar weapons. Admiral Kang Hyun-woo, now Supreme Commander of Galactic Security Forces, maintained a fleet of Starkillers positioned throughout known space. The ships served as both guardians and reminders, symbols of what happened to those who chose conquest over cooperation. "Sir," Captain Oseojin reported during their monthly strategic briefing, "the Calarian hegemony has withdrawn their invasion fleet from Vegan space. They cite diplomatic considerations as the reason." Kang nodded with satisfaction. The Calarians had been testing humanity's resolve, probing to see if the new galactic order would hold. One visit from a human patrol group had reminded them that some boundaries were absolute. On Earth, President Song Mirai addressed the Global Assembly on the first anniversary of the war's end. "We sought the stars in peace, offering our hand in friendship to any who would take it. We found war instead. We mastered it, as we have mastered every challenge our species has faced." The audience listened in solemn silence as she continued. "But we have learned that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when destruction is necessary. We are no longer the naive species that first reached for the stars. We are the guardians of galactic peace, armed with the fire of suns themselves." In the depths of space, Captain Yoon Subin commanded the newest addition to humanity's stellar fleet, the Harmony Restored. The ship's name reflected humanity's complex relationship with their newfound power. They remained committed to peace, but it was now a peace backed by unimaginable force. "Captain," her science officer, Dr. Kim Tae-hyung, reported, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the Andorian system. It might be another species attempting to develop stellar weapons." Subin nodded grimly. It was inevitable that others would try to match humanity's capabilities. The challenge of the new galactic order was ensuring that such weapons remained in responsible hands. "Set course for Andorian space," she ordered. "Time for another diplomatic visit." The final scene of humanity's transformation played out in the Vorthak home system, where War Master Velthok, now a prisoner of war, was brought before a human tribunal. The proceeding wasn't about revenge, but about justice for the 3 million humans who had died in the initial attacks. Judge Park Min-sik, appointed by the Galactic Confederation, read the charges with careful precision. "War Master Velthok, you stand accused of genocide, crimes against sentient beings, and violations of galactic law. How do you plead?" Velthok, his spirit broken by witnessing the destruction of his empire, spoke quietly. "I plead for understanding. We thought you were weak. We thought conquest was strength. We were wrong." The former War Master looked up at the human judge, his eyes holding a mixture of fear and strange respect. "Your species. You are unlike anything the galaxy has known. You offer mercy to your enemies, protection to the weak, yet you wield power that could end all life as we know it. How do you live with such contradictions?" Judge Park considered the question carefully. "Because we remember what we were before we became what we are. We remember the children who died on New Busan, the families on Kepler 438b. We remember that power without purpose is just destruction, and destruction without justice is just cruelty." As the tribunal concluded and Velthok was sentenced to life imprisonment rather than execution, the galaxy watched and learned. Humanity had become the apex predator of known space, but they remained guided by principles that their power could not corrupt. The final transmission from Admiral Kang to all species in the galaxy served as both promise and warning. Humanity stands ready to defend the innocent, protect the weak, and preserve the peace. We offer our friendship freely, but we do not offer it twice. The suns that warm your worlds shine by our grace. Remember that when you consider the choices you make among the stars, And in the darkness between stars, human ships patrolled silently, carrying the fire of Earth's sun in their hearts and the power to kindle or extinguish the light of any world that chose war over peace. The galaxy had learned to whisper humanity's name with reverence, knowing that some species are most dangerous when they have something to protect, and that humanity had chosen to protect them all.